Well, the tape is up and rolling. Over to you, man.
And welcome, people. We are here with our interview in our relaunch debut show. Dr. Andrew Revkin. Andy, hello. And
Hey,
um, this gentleman is visionary. He creates things. He's a founder of the sustainability. What's the language there?
the
Uh,
initiative for communication and sustainability at the Columbia Climate School, which is kind of emerging from what had been the Earth Institute at Columbia.
Amen. Now I had to go to you for that because I would never have gotten that whole
No,
thing right.
it's clunky and whatever.
But don't get a marketing expert to like bring it down to like one number and one syllable, please.
Okay.
But I know that I recently came back into your extensive sphere there of environmentalist musicians with your Sunday Sanity series and your uh, sitting in the green room of your um, uh, Sunday morning gathering. And welcome. Welcome to the Earth Riot Radio. It's
Great to
great to
be
have
here.
you here.
Well, it's great to be here, man.
Few
I love
people
what you
write
do.
about extinction as much as you do. I'd like
Hallelujah,
to.
sort of.
Yeah, wow. Very, very complicated emotional issue for
Mhm.
people handling it like you are.
Yeah.
Um, we just got back from Glasgow, where we experienced that division between the hotels and conference centers behind that metal fence there, where they're having a high stakes poker game about our climate. And then on this side of the fence, and on this side of a long row of police, there's music, and all the things that music gives you, the movement, the talking, the touching, the dancing, the parading. And then some people, of course, Extinction Rebellion and so forth, they took that dancing up to the highway and stopped traffic.
Hmm.
So it went into actions of various degrees of intensity. Um, and we got back to New York, and we just feel like um, I want to ask you, where is the music right now
Yeah.
vis-a-vis activism? What would be your assessment there?
Oh man, it's kind of like asking where is the Democratic Party? Meaning, you know, the forces of stasis, the here the Republicans, elsewhere around the world, other people, Saudi Arabia, they sing one song really well, and the song is that don't let's stick with the way things are.
Mm.
And Trump rode into the White House using that song, and everyone has this instinct to want to keep things the way they are or were. Older people have more of a sense of the way things were.
Mm.
And so they tend to be even more stuck in that mode. So that's a really easy song to sing. We all kind of go to bed with that song in our heads to a certain extent, even if progressives, like we want to be somewhere, right? And the problem going forward to me, been writing about this stuff as a journalist now for like 35 freaking years. That's a little more than half my life. And I'm into my 60s.
What's a frickin' year as opposed to like a dog
Yeah.
year?
Well, the last 2 years have been freaking years for sure. Pandemonium.
Oh God, yes.
So going. The problem is you need many songs to get us through that. Uh, what I mean by that is like for energy. There's a place on this planet for nuclear power, even though my wife and many of my neighbors who live in the Hudson River Valley are very happy that Indian Point, our local power plant, shut down.
Finally.
Well, finally, yes, but if you care about the climate enough, turning off 20% of America's electricity, which is what we would do to shut down all of our nuclear power plants, is a song I wouldn't want to sing. But that means what I'm saying there is it takes a diversity of approaches on a complex planet to get us through this moment in time, to get us toward 2100 without a completely overheated, fucked up Earth, and with more justice and more inclusion and the things we think of when we talk about resilience and progress. So
Well,
it
this
takes
is a
real
really
time.
elegant answer to my stridently binary setup there of the people in the conference hall, the billionaires and their stooges, and then the
Yeah,
the free people outside. And I think I do have that tendency because I'm looking for the activism. I'm looking for the lever of change, and
absolutely.
that involves engaging people with music, but also upsetting somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and usually involves police surrounding the singers and all that.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, what I just said includes that the songs. There's a total place for activism, including edgy activism. That without that, the center really doesn't move. Things don't. It's kind of like, just to give you one quick example, way back 10, 15 years ago, Nestle
Oh
and
yes.
your Kit Kat bars. We all candy. Halloween palm oil and Greenpeace, which I haven't always agreed with on some things. They
Hmm.
they took a really interesting approach that included some unbelievably edgy YouTube videos. So where like some office worker in England is biting into his Kit Kat bar while he's on a break, and it starts bleeding, and you realize it's an orangutan finger,
Oh God.
you know, and so like that's like, oh my god, right? But while they were doing that, they also Greenpeace was on the ground in Indonesia with their Indonesian partners, keeping track of the plantations where there's, and there are other environmental groups there ready to rescue Nestle, right? When I say rescue them, I mean come with us and we'll show you ways to evolve from getting your palm oil from orangutan habitat. So it's like without any of those elements, you know, you need the whole picture. You need the
So
edge
Greenpeace was
pushing.
up against like Environmental Defense Fund or something.
Well, you could say up against, but I to me it's with
Did they
even
work
if
together?
well,
They
but
don't.
not. I don't think it's a. There might be some
Maybe
crosstalk,
they don't like each other so much.
but it's like without all of those elements of that puzzle,
Uh huh.
you wouldn't have change. So you kind of need the edge, you need the push, you need people in the streets, you need people in Chase Bank lobbies with cameras. Very clever activism approach that you guys have taken. But we also need to figure out ways to take these big institutions forward. Whether it's sometimes it'll be in court, sometimes it'll be through consumer demand, but that only works for consumer products. It doesn't work for
Uh huh. Uh huh.
commodities. And so the whole rich stew, again, I've written thousands of stories on this stuff, and kind of all of those elements of the prism are part of the human way.
There
And
isn't
it's
one right way necessarily.
but it takes a loud chorus. You do need, we need everything that you guys do, and some of it's just part of the stew, and without it, the world would be a much poorer place.
I saw the Extinction Rebellion took on Greenpeace,
I missed
and I
that.
can't remember the nature of the objection, but it gave me the sensation of, oh, Greenpeace always had that role of being the avant-garde,
Well,
and
Greenpeace
now,
is a huge operation, right? It's like
uh huh.
a hundreds of millions of dollars a year budget, and all the Greenpeaces, and so I could see it becoming seen as mainstream. To raise that much money, you got to appeal to middle class folks, and that wouldn't
But
surprise me. I'd look it up. I'll look it up.
they come out and say at the beginning of all their websites and brochures, we don't take money from corporations, and so good for them for raising big bucks in another way.
Oh, sure.
I,
Well, yeah, it would be from middle America.
and people stranded in their jobs who just want to, you know,
Yeah,
pay off their conscience. Now, your love
yeah.
of music is um, uh, music and the 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 struggle in this extinction time,
Mm-hmm.
uh, my mind immediately goes to Joni Mitchell and Neil Young, kind of
Oh
in the
yeah,
news just lately. And you have played extensively with Pete Seeger,
I have
and
indeed.
you're kind of in that generation of, and the the possibilities that we feel from these people that have this body of work. Um, it's exciting. It's exciting, and I don't remember this happening exactly like this in some time, where you really have elders. You have elders gathering, really since Pete Seeger. Let's put it
Yeah,
that way. Noam Chomsky,
yeah,
but with Neil Young and Joni Mitchell, you've got um, they are poets. They are wordsmiths. How is it that we don't know what we've lost until what is it? It's the parking
oh
lot song.
yeah, yeah.
They
You don't
both
know
have
what's lost until it's gone.
yeah. They both have lots of songs of that kind, ranging in different topics, including, of course,
Totally.
romance. And that's part of why they're so powerful is that we have taken the steps of our life passages with their songs as our soundtrack. Um, Now, just this morning, I woke up to be greeted by uh, Bill McKibben has been, hobnobbing with Neil, and Neil Young is calling for the boycott of Chase City, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America. Well, now that let we want a song. We want a song for
Yeah,
that.
totally.
uh,
I wrote a piece for my .earth blog when I was still at the New York Times at least 10 years ago on the environmental movement needs a new song. It's like, where is that? And uh, our music habits, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe one of the issues is like music has gotten just as fragmented as news now. Remember back in the day, we'd all pick up a
exactly.
newspaper and we'd look at the front page, or we'd watch the nightly news and we'd all see 10 stories. And there could be a national conversation, or at least, then they take polls and people would say, oh, the Vietnam War is important.
Right, right.
And now it's like, there's like an information buffet, right? So whatever your musical or news interest is, you go out to the world's biggest buffet now and you gorge on it. But it's so segmented, right? The people listening to Neil Young aren't listening to hip hop and et cetera, et cetera. So I think maybe we've just gotten so fragmented that way that there isn't a single song. I don't
Well,
know.
they're saying that his streaming has gone up 35% since he got out of Spotify and insulted Joe Rogan. So
Oh, that's
maybe
good.
maybe we can bring back but I would why don't you play Carbon Heavy, that your
Liberated
song,
Carbon. Yeah, let me.
Liberated Carbon. Can we hear
Yeah,
that?
and then I want to hear this song you guys have worked on. So yeah, let me just share this thing again. Yeah, hold on one second. We'll get to it. So before we go there, you did mention my buddy Pete, and here I am with
There he is.
Pete and Steve Stan, the really tall guy in the middle who used to work at Clearwater for many years and also worked for the state. Anyone who's ever been in up the Hudson River, driving through a highway, you'll see when you're in a watershed that's part of the Hudson River watershed, there's an emblem of a sturgeon, this rare species of fish, and Steve Stan also created that. So we'd be singing. I've been singing since before I was a journalist. So as a teenager, I started playing guitar, and I moved to the Hudson Valley in 1991, and Pete Seeger lived just 10 minutes away, and he ran this little monthly. He was part of the Beacon Sloop Club up in Beacon, New York, and you get there and just pick up a banjo or something, and you're playing with Pete. And we got to know each other. I quoted him in many articles about the Hudson River and other issues, and we became friends the last 20 years of his life. And till he died age 96 or so. And but this was the coolest thing about Pete was something that he used to do at any concert, especially as his voice got weaker when he got older. He would hold up halfway through a song, he would hold up his hand to his ear. And that was his signal. This is for everyone. I want to hear you guys singing. And it was about this circle of song. He wasn't about his own voice. He never liked fame that I saw. He liked community. And that sort of ear cupping, hand to the ear cupping thing, if we had more of that in current music, maybe that would be a good way forward.
Making community.
Yeah, let me see. Let's get to that song. Yeah, so I wrote this song in the early aughts, when maybe it was earlier than that. It's about oil. It's about our history it's humanity's relationship with energy in 3 minutes. It's kind of a history of our fossil fixation.
It took 1,000 generations for our species to rise, but gathering and hunting was no way to get by. We yearned to burn more than dung and sticks. Then someone came along and said, hey, try lighting this. He opened up the ground and showed us coal and oil. Said, come liberate some carbon, it'll make your blood boil. Liberated carbon, it'll spin your wheels. Liberated carbon, it'll nuke your meals. Liberated carbon, it'll turn your night to day. Hey, hey, come on and liberate some carbon, baby, it's the American way. Now I got Pete Swamp fossils running my TV. BP's Black Label burns in my SUV. We can light up the planet like a Christmas tree. Yeah, they say that things are getting hot, but hey, we've got AC. Liberated carbon, it'll spin your wheels. Liberated carbon, it'll nuke your meals. Liberated carbon, it'll turn your night to day. Hey, hey, come on and liberate some carbon, babe, it's the American way. Hunt those electrons and that gasoline. No sweat or hurry, just turn on a machine. We send an army to the desert to keep this country free. Hey, hey, and to liberate some carbon, baby, for you and me. Liberated carbon, it'll spin your wheels. Liberated carbon, it'll nuke your meals. Liberated carbon, it'll turn your night to day. Hey, hey, come on and liberate some carbon, baby. Liberate some carbon, baby. Liberate some carbon, baby. It's the American way.
Amen.
Amen.
Earth-alleluia.
Earth-alleluia, for sure. Yeah, so and that's on my one and only album, which came out back in 2013. Yeah, so that's that keeps me sane. Music. I think the other reality for music and for performance, the stuff you do, is it builds community and ultimately can cross lines. I think there'll be people who will always resist the things you pursue through your activism in that active way. But I think a lot of people will, there's humor in it. I think humor and music both can cut through some of the extreme storminess out there these days. How can you get, I've had like Reggie Harris, a friend of mine who's a songwriter. He's African-American. He's Black Lives Matter activist. And he was in upstate New York
Yeah.
on a town green. He was on he's on many of our shows. He might have been on one of the
one of the Sunday
similar
shows.
things he did. Anyway, he was up on some town green in upstate New York, in a pretty conservative part, for a BLM rally after the George Floyd disaster and tragedy, and there was a MAGA rally on the same green.
Whoa!
And
at the same time?
Yeah, and it kind of got interesting. And Reggie ended up saying there's a great part of a show I did with him where he talks through his own feelings. His blood was rising, talking to this one guy, and they were like, not coming to blows, but really intense. And Reggie just stopped at one point, took a breath, and he said, "My name's Reggie. What's yours?"
Good job.
And they started talking, because they reminded each other momentarily they were human beings and not symbols. So whether it's humor or just proximity, I think things can still, they're
standing there in your bodies, with things coming through you, memories.
Yeah.
Your family's nearby, maybe.
Yeah, and
a lot of the riots, the family isn't there. A lot of the riots, you've just got.
Yeah, I know.
Mostly guys.
Yeah, there's that.
So
I don't know. And
I'm just that humor is there's a word that Lynn Margulis and the evolutionists would have for the stray radicals. The humor in culture makes things pop and change and distort and hallucinate, and going forward in a new way is what we must do. With the gas and oil, the people who were in audio land and couldn't see what I was seeing here, we'll post it on the revbilly.com. But this amazing movie, the video that goes with the song, it starts in 1866. There they are at the first oil well ever.
I know.
That's 150 years ago. So we are locked into the culture of gas and oil, and it makes us the same. It gives us the pavement and the wheels. It's the choreography. It's so much locked in, and humor is the genetic. There's a word for it. The genetic mutational freedom that we must have now. Because lots of people, if this were to work, the last paragraph of all those studies is, unless we radically drop our use of our drilling and shipping and burning of fossil fuel immediately, we have this apocalypse to look forward to. That's what all the studies for the last 30 years have had that in the last page. And if we ever did do that, Andy, we would have to have humor. We would have to have a bunch of comforting, and we'd have to be able to do it. We just couldn't do it. Some people say the only way we can do it is stark raving fear.
I don't. Well, what do you think about that?
I think there has to be music. I think there has to be humor. I think that the civil rights movement and ACT UP and the labor movement, the women's movement, the peace movement, they all had humor and music driving them and defining with the words. And sometimes I do feel that right now, this extinction event that we're a part of now, coming out of COVID, if I can dare say that, where I was relieved to have Neil Young and Joni Mitchell make a political statement, and their music to light up the atmosphere. And I want young people, and I want hip hop, and I want the earth to sweep through the musicscape right now.
For sure. Well, the other thing is, hope is a weird word. People, I like people who remind us that hope is a verb.
Right.
I hope. At its root, it's a verb. I don't have hope. I hope. And that transforms it into an action. and from being an aspiration, like a vague thing. And that's why I'm actually not a big fan of climate emergency. It's kind of like paralytic. We're in a climate emergency. I understand how it's become a driver of the impetus for certain things, but it reminds me too much of that sort of flailing moment in an emergency, as opposed to climate response, or where do we go from here? Climate emergency, therefore what?
And it's not doing its job. I heard that at Glasgow a lot. I mean, over the top descriptions of our impending agony, and over the top language doesn't do the job sometimes.
No,
it doesn't get you there.
I'd say more often than not, unfortunately. It
purges you on the spot. You feel okay because you were extreme in your language.
I know, and you see, there are several aspects of this that are really troubling to me. I love what Greta Thunberg has done in terms of community building, Fridays for Future and stuff. But she then has become a token, like the World Economic Forum had her, and on screen at one of their meetings. This is the billionaires, right? And they sort of have her there on screen yelling at them, and then they all kind of quietly applaud, and then go on to the next thing. Thank you very much, we're done.
But that great quote from her after she was done with Davos, she said, "I don't want your applause, I want your panic."
Well, but even there, I'm not going to debate her about her word choices or her.
They love the sadomasochism. They love the. Thank you, Greta, for scolding us.
But yeah, in a way, it still is that it's a tokenization. Okay, we got that out of the way. And panic, is panic. She wants them to act, right, or to get out of the way, which is an action. So to me, okay, let's have that moment, but then, okay, where do we go from here? Today, tomorrow, and the next day.
I'll always respect how, when she had the power early in her work, she turned and attacked a major institution. The grade schools and just millions of kids didn't go on Friday, and they had climate workshops with each other. And I don't know if that continues to this day. Right now, we're remote so much of the time. I think it got lost in COVID, I think.
Yeah.
But that, for a time, I thought, well, that's what we have to do. We're just not, so often we're not crossing the drawbridge of the big institutions, and they are just handling us with, well, I saw this in Glasgow, handling us with their lobbyists, lawyers, marketing people,
sure,
and ultimately police. But they have layers and layers and layers of people taking care of us before we get into the canoe to cross the moat and climb the wall. They're easily ensconced inside that castle. So you want to check out the Stop Shopping song?
I totally do.
Okay.
And we could get back to talking about Glasgow and stuff like that. Hold on a second.
Well, this was written. This was performed at Glasgow at the Center for Performing Arts by its composer. He's the main voice there. There's a trio, but the main voice is Sundar, who's visiting India right now, and visiting his ancestry. It's about immersion. I was just coming off of the metaphor of the moat. It's called "Let's You and Me Go Swimming," and it very much asks the question: what form will our activism take here in this sixth extinction?
And here goes. For those who are watching, the lyrics are on the screen, and you can sing along or learn it.
Let's you and me go swim. Let's you and me go swim in the dead zone sea. In the dead zone sea. De-demonize the Wuhan virus. De-demonize the Wuhan virus. Pacific cat goes free. Pacific cat goes free. Let's you and me go climbing. Let's you and me go climbing. A blackened mountainside. Up a blackened mountainside. Apologize to the bleeding sun. Apologize to the bleeding sun. We lost the last word. 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 Let's you and me go flying. Take a rocket to the innocent breeze. Take a rocket to the innocent breeze. Breathe the smog of broken data. Crash in the crime of the tree. Crash in the crime of the tree. Let's you and me go dying. With the race to end our race. Look up from the mirror and into the eyes of everyone's unknown beautiful face. Everyone's unknown beautiful face. I love the horizon, leaping to its death. Let's embrace what isn't there. Let's go for a swim in the raging flood of Mother Earth self-care. 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 Mother Earth self-care.
That is so beautiful. And it's made more beautiful by the sound of children in the background wherever you are. Is there a school outside, or
It does sound like Greta Thunberg's 13-year-olds. That's the Stop Shopping Choir.
Fantastic.
And I think it's mostly the sopranos and altos. Sounds like the feminine voice there. I've got that one line I just discovered as I was sitting here and having the lines in front of me. There's this one line. I'm the author of the words, and there's this one line that it's like Branson and Bezos and Musk took over my body, because there's this line: "Let's you and me go flying, take a rocket to the innocent breeze." What? What is that? Let's be billionaire brats with our limousines in outer space. I can't believe that's in there, and it will be changed somehow.
Well, yeah, but this gets at what we were saying earlier. We live in a world of narratives, and you and I grew up in the space race, and it's hard to kind of break free of those existing structures and memories and really invent something new. One thing I think about a lot in the Biden era is the limits of the phrase "build back better." To me, it's build forward better. There's so much of that sort of nostalgia element can pull us back into norms that we won't want. Build forward better. Let's break free of our ideas of what a city is. We have to reinvent suburbia somehow, or it took 100 years to build this sprawly thing. I live on a train line, so I'm not really in a suburban setting so much, but sprawl, you can't just immediately unsprawl, right? There's a woman at the University of Georgia who just has a new book out on breaking suburbia into looking at it and figuring out a new way to think about it and to build forward better again, to not build back.
Have you read the book? Do you want
her new one? No. It's essentially looking at that landscape, knowing you can't literally blast it all away.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
One thing is about.
I see a jackhammer here.
Yeah, but it's more about changes in zoning, so you get more
density of
density and
people,
walkability in little zones. Like there's a website, one of my favorite websites, deadmalls.com.
Yeah.
It's a map of
Isn't it
malls
wonderful?
that are broken. And there are places that where malls have been rebuilt, like literally as a community, a walkable community. In Massachusetts, there's one. I wrote about this on .earth at the Times, over a decade ago. Her name is Ellen. Oh, come on, brain. I could look it up, but she does really creative work. She's an architecture person. Ellen.
Oh man, miles of pavement there.
Yeah.
Miles and miles of pavement, and the earth. Well, the lawns have a lot of glyphosate. There's lots of
Oh, there's all kinds of
poison.
How many issues? Let us count the issues.
And well, thank you for playing that. I mean the major statement here is that we have to physically immerse in the earth.
Sorry. Yeah, I love the song, and I love this effort to dream forward. It's sort of a dreamscape too, the song. And
well, I had just been reading Poet New York by Federico Garcia Lorca, and I think I was heavily influenced by the amazing imagery.
Yeah.
And the idea of rediscovering how to put your body, talk about suburban problems, how to get back to physically the earth, such that it isn't a recreational thing necessarily, or isn't necessarily a extreme sport background or whatever. When you travel to it from some distance away, then we have a chance to invent these mediations.
Right.
How do you bring the wilderness into the suburbs? Ultimately, there's a whole group of people working on that. Working on. There's language there, bringing the wilderness back, rewilding.
Yeah. Well, there's the song feels like it has a little bit of that dark ecology moment in it too, or sort of embracing the dark side of the journey. Let's you and me go dying. There is a voluntary extinction movement. I hope you're not part of that, because we need more of you, not less of you.
Thank you. That. I'll put it back a few days.
I haven't written about the voluntary extinction movement, but it is a thing. There are people who are stopping having kids because of that climate emergency, climate catastrophe meme. And there's been recent articles about climate anxiety, breakdown. Some of that I worry about in the same way I worry about climate emergency, because it's sort of not simply because we need everyone to get busy and do shit, but there always would be people who just haven't. For them, this is a depressing time. I mean, gosh, how could it not be, right? To some extent, there's a range of emotions, a range of reactions, but I hope we don't get too sort of caught up in that idea that that's where we all have to go.
Well, in the light of the teenage suicides, and I don't like our culture to make a fashion out of that kind of departure. I initially did appreciate the Dark Mountain movement in England, but they were not talking about the designed demise of humans. They were talking about being honest, the way we're trying to be honest in this song, to be honest about what is happening, and that whatever does happen, we don't know. But what we should work with what we do know, and a lot of that would be discouraging to a regular goofy Midwestern cheerleader, but of which I come from that stock. But
you're reminding me, by the way, I did have Noam Chomsky on a session several months ago before his 94th birthday.
Ooh.
And he said some really interesting things. When you think of Chomsky, at least when I thought of him in the abstract, he seems so very focused on this other vision of politics, of social systems.
Mm-hmm.
But we were talking about, what do you do within? What's the balance between working within today's realities and pursuing a fundamentally post-capitalist, I won't idea. And he said something really powerful. He said, we have to work. You have to work where you are. It was very. He was kind of like super pragmatic. There was a students on this and some other faculty, and he said, with regard to being hopeful, we have basically kind of a version of Pascal's wager. We have two choices. We can either give up hope and help ensure that the worst will happen, as it will, or we can grasp the opportunities that exist, however we estimate their force. But they do exist. We can grasp them and pursue them, and maybe we can make it a better world. Those are the choices. As to whether we're capable of doing it, it will soon be known.
Oh my God! Thank you for reading that.
Well, it was a gift. The whole hour with him was a gift. It was.
And the hour with you, which is coming up to an hour now, has been a gift. And that reading by Dr. Chomsky, can we regard that as our benediction?
Yeah, although I would certainly love, you're kind of interviewing me, but I would love to hear your quick sermonette. What's your benediction? What's your outro to the world?
I know that I have enjoyed my being with you since we met, since you interviewed us 10 years ago. Maybe, was it 10 years ago?
It might have been even more.
More than that? Well, the demarcation I use is Occupy Wall Street. Was it before Occupy or after Occupy?
Right in that, somewhere in that.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I appreciate the way that you are able to credit many different viewpoints, and you do it simultaneously. You do it crediting everyone, and then because you are able to take 3 or 5 viewpoints and have them in the same room in the same paragraph, then there's a kind of compassion that's possible. You're like Reggie at that Commons. There's in the world of ideas, and sometimes because we ground ourselves in trespassing while singing and risking arrest, and we have to do that at a certain rate, or we start going batty, or some people would say that is batty, but we need that for our souls. And there is with the risk, there's the risk with that approach of making a heaven a hell, a black and white, a evil and good, which we see even good liberals are driven to that right now by Trump. And it's a tendency that I think hurts our ability to have elasticity and to, in the environmental movement, we have this extinction event, the virus, the superstorms, the heat waves, the wildfires. We have all kinds of feedback loops. It's all one now. It's just the earth with all these different kinds of permutations, and our ability to absorb so much, to sort it out, and to bring, as we said, the humor and the music is all important to going forward and not back.
Yeah.
I just dedicate my final remarks here to going forward with the complexity that humor and music bring us back to again and again.
That's a beautiful way to get at those things, and they give us space. They sort of give permission, humor and music and performance to and conversation to engagement, to getting out of the symbolic, symbol driven discussion, which doesn't get anywhere. By the way, I looked it up, and I first got to know you and doing this piece in 2007, which is getting to be a very
Well,
long time ago. This was a fresh advertising pitch. Buy nothing, because you were down in this section on the Church of Stop Shopping, I think was in here. There was a video.
Was that
here.
adjoining with the conversation with Savitri and I?
Well, here we go. Still, the more hardcore anti-consumerism movement has gotten a boost in the last few days with its own documentary, What Would Jesus Buy? Opening in New York City and LA. The film, reviewed favorably in the Times, chronicles the cross-country crusade by Reverend Billy of the Church of Stop Shopping. So, and you can see the internet is breaking because there's no, the Adobe Flash Player is no longer supported, but that was the first one. And then you were in some of my other stories going afterward. So thank you. I've been tracking your journey for a long time.
Thank you, Andy.
Yep. And now back to the day of, for me, action and is really still writing mostly.
You got to write now.
Yeah, and I'm writing sadly about this, another piece about this poor creature, this poor inhabitant.
I was going to say they look like loons.
Those are the fins.
The porpoises, the
They're
dolphins.
the fins of the last. There are only 7 or maybe 8 left in the whole world.
This was on Savitri's News from the Natural World recently.
Yeah, I've done a lot of reporting on here. Here's a little video I shot of. I kind of produced this of their.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
They're vanishing.
Heartbreaking. You're willing to accept the dark mountain inside yourself there.
Well, ultimately, I've already written several sort of species obituaries when I was at the New York Times. The baiji, the river dolphin in China, I had to write about its demise, and I just feel, again, this is an experiment. I don't know if this animation will help in some way, but I figured I'd try.
And
we just have to try every day.
Yeah. Forward. Thank you so much, Andy.
Ursaluia.
To talk with you for this last hour. And now I'll shape a little 5 minutes of it into the first half hour to invite people to leap over into the main part of the conversation.
Awesome. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. We will. Have a good afternoon writing.
Take care of yourself. Yep. And hail those kids playing outside there.
Yeah, you hear the schoolyard?
Totally. It's great.